So, Danny, I don't know if you can hear this or not, but I am playing our theme song at the moment.
Sorry, suddenly you sound not very good. I can hear you.
It's a technical workshop here, Danny.
Okay, now you sound normal.
Do I really?
Yeah, just for a second there, you sounded like
A little muffled and weird.
Yeah, it was kind of just.
It's because we're trying some new technology here. Again, pushing the limits of what we're capable of.
Like Chuck Yeager.
What's going on, Danny? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. You know, we just to be transparent, we are broadcasting in two different locations. I am on at our south, the headquarters south, and you are at headquarters north right now. And we're just trying out some new equipment and a new way of doing things.
That's right.
So far, so good?
So far, so good. We're the innovators and disruptors.
Yeah, I guess that's what we're going. Is that what we're going for? Innovators.
It sounds fancy.
Yeah. How you doing, man? How's your week going?
Pretty good. It's obviously a short week, at least for me, because of the holiday, Labor Day. But yeah, it already feels like it's half over because I guess it is. So just busy with work. I did get out. We continue to have really lovely weather, so I got out today and yesterday for just an hour and a half ride. Got some sun. Got to take a spin on the new bike.
Yeah, that's right. You got your new your new what is it?
Domane. And yeah, my renewed bike, which we could talk about if we want. But
yeah,
got a couple rides in, and as you know, I was down to see you.
Correct. Yeah.
Saturday, was it?
Yeah, everything is all mixed. The holiday throws me for a loop. You know,
it totally does.
It's just like, especially this week, I've just got a lot of stuff going on, and I've got myself into the middle of something. So,
yeah. Normally it doesn't, but for some reason this time it does. But yeah, I was down to see you at the shop.
Yeah. And, you were out for a long ride. I kind of after you split, I started paying attention to where you were going or what you were doing, and that was quite.
You're like, spin. What the fuck is he doing?
Yeah, I was trying to understand where you were headed, and what you were.
Nobody knows, Joe, even me.
No, it's okay.
So no, it turned out to be. It wasn't like crazy long, but I think it was around 55 miles or something.
Man.
But the cool part of it, the only interesting part of it, really, is that I've been wanting to do this like quote unquote multimodal cycling, which I wrote about a few years back, but I've never really done it. Not really. So basically you just take a train as part of your bike ride, if you want to boil it down. So kind of the idea is like, and if I'm sure there are some listeners who've done this, so it's not like anything new, but it's the idea, I think, for me at least, is a couple of things, but you can ride somewhere far and then take the train home, or vice versa, take the train out somewhere and ride home, or some variation, or you can mix it up, or who knows what. But I had never really done that, and I was kind of keen to try it, and just on a small scale, and I hope to do a handful of these in the coming weeks, however much good weather we have left. But I basically rode to you, and then I jumped on the trail, and I rode to Joliet.
Okay.
And then I caught the train. I caught it within like 4 minutes.
Wow, just on time.
Yes, so just 4 minutes, and I got the train back to Chicago. I took it to the LaSalle Street station. So I got to be on there with all the White Sox fans going down to 35th.
Oh, nice. That's a good crowd.
Yes.
Very understanding of a cyclist, and a bike, and on a Saturday. What was that? A Saturday? Was it Saturday night or Sunday? It's a Saturday night, right?
I only got beat up 3
Yeah,
times.
I'm sure. Well, I mean, you're from the South Side, so they'd let you go. You start talking Oak Lawn, and start talking South Side to them. I think they would let you. You could probably you're Irish as well, so I mean, I
I
think
could pass.
yeah, I think you can get. I think you could talk yourself out of that. You have brothers in the trades, so you could probably you could drop a few things there that would probably get you out of that. Wait, he's one of us. All right, he's one of us. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. All
Hey
right.
man, I saw Greg Luzinski,
Yeah, yeah. See,
DH Grand Slam back in the day.
see, there you go.
Um,
That would have been that right there. You drop the bull on them. You drop a Greg Lazinski. You know,
Carlton Fisk. Yeah, I got some
there you go.
autographs.
That right there. That's enough.
Anyway, very simple thing, but I basically rode out and then I took the train back and then I just rode my bike from LaSalle back to Logan Square. It was fun. It was really cool. I hadn't really done it's kind of silly in my mind, but I haven't really done that in a long time. If I ever did it, maybe back in the day, maybe even like in Ireland or something. I can't remember, but yeah, just there's a couple cars. It's not complicated. There's a couple cars that you can put your bike in, kind of officially, and yeah, it was nice. It was just cool. Like, you know, depending on where I'm at with like my quote unquote fitness and the weather and this and that and my schedule and what's going on, I may have just done the whole ride, pedaling.
Sure.
But like I said, I kind of wanted to test this out.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did the whole ride pedaling, it definitely would have been a very long day. I'd probably be pretty laying up all day in bed on Sunday.
Yeah.
But I need some hydration. No, but I kind of wanted to like just check it out. And so now that I've done that, Metra has like all these different lines. You can see all the maps online. So I may strike out north next time. I may go northwest. There's a bunch of options, and I think for me personally, one of the cool benefits is, you can do loops obviously, but it
Mm-hmm.
takes a little planning, and it's not rocket science. But for me, the tricky part of riding in the Chicagoland area is there are plenty of roads you can ride on that are fairly bike friendly or just not terribly hectic or crazy and all that. But finding like kind of nicer rides, like kind of nicer roads, like for me, that's a little bit tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Like having like a really nice route that you can do. So I know a handful, but they tend to be like shorter, like 30, 40 miles. But when you start pushing it, like let's say I want to ride to DeKalb, and that's something I did back in the day when I was student there and had friends up there and all that. But if I want to take the train out there and then ride back, which is something I might do. I think it's about 65 miles. So, what's kind of the best way back? But I'd like to do a ride that's like a little more scenic. I know I'm kind of grasping a little bit there, but
Mm-hmm.
just something, and it doesn't have to be scenic with a capital S, just something a little bit nicer.
You take in a few castles and maybe like a Roman wall.
Only if it's got a
A
moat.
moor, yeah. Something, those kinds of rides, right?
I want catapults, man.
Yeah.
No, but like something with like a nice, decent coffee shop, and just something like that. So for me, it's just part of the fun exploring it. So I want to do a couple more of these. Hopefully, at least 2 or 3 more before the season's out.
You should explore that Warm Showers website. Maybe you could stop for a warm shower on your 40-mile ride. Just not actually spend the night. Just stop by and shower. See if it was.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, that wouldn't be weird at all.
Yeah, I messaged you earlier about stopping by. Just a mid-ride, a nice mid-ride shower.
Mid-ride shower. So many images come to mind.
Yeah.
The whole thing was lovely. I do have a couple of quick stories. So as I got closer, I wasn't obsessed with making the train. There was a 415 and a 615, but as I was kind of riding along, I'm like, oh, like I should be able to make the 415. And now it actually is something I actually want to do because I don't want to kill 2 hours in Joliet.
Mm-hmm.
So without, anyone around, and I could just do a little more riding around, but I didn't really feel like up to it. So anyway, I'm like, all right. All of a sudden, I'm like determined. Now I'm like clicking up a gear. I'm going a little bit harder. Nothing hard, but I'm like, all right. Now I got a time. And I'm looking at my watch, and I'm like, all right. So what was funny though is I almost missed it because as I was, and this is more of like a experience with Google Maps, which is not something I often use. I usually use my Garmin, and a lot of times I just wing it.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of like following my nose. And I know generally in the Chicagoland area, like I'm pretty good with direction in the sense that I always know north, etc. And I can usually get a good sense for where I'm at. But for whatever reason, I was just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to follow the map. So I'm following the map, and it took me into like some interesting little nooks and crannies. So do you know in like Joliet, those like, I don't know what it is. There's like some old, it's not really a ruin, but there's like some,
Like factory,
what is,
yeah, old steel factories there, and
well,
yeah.
well, there's that, but then there's also like, I have to show you a picture. I'm sure you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about, but it's in that wooded area where they also have the disc golf course. Do you know what I'm talking
No.
about?
I mean,
Okay.
I'm not sure of that particular place.
Okay, so I'll send you some pictures.
Yeah.
You'll probably know, but it's got some old, interesting, like for lack of a better word, ruins. But it's kind of like a walking trail, a hiking trail, and then there's like you can bike too. But for whatever reason, Google Maps, I clicked the little bike for the direction, the bike icon, and I took a picture of it. I ended up on this like, I mean, on a mountain bike you'd be fine, but it wasn't really like a groomed bike path, and it was a very like rocky, kind of janky path, and it led me into this one little section which was all like spray painted. You could tell that's where the kind of like the kids partied. You know what I'm talking about? That kind of thing. And it was cool because the spray paint, it wasn't really graffiti. It was like people just like spraying, and it was kind of cool looking actually. But I was on a road bike on like 28 millimeter tires, and I was able to ride it okay, but I could have easily flatted like there. It was kind of little sharp little rocks, and it was just like one of those little things like, oops, here's I was just like tweeting about it. I'm like, oh, here's where Google Maps took me. So I almost missed my train because I was noodling in there, and I got into one of those like vortexes where like Google Maps is like having me go around and around, and all of a sudden I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna get on the main road and like go to the train station. So I did that, and I made it in like 4 minutes to spare.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, I yeah, you don't want to spend 2 hours on a Saturday night in Joliet if you don't.
Yeah, but my siblings, they don't live in Joliet, but they live in like not too far like suburbs from there, like New Lenox and Mokina, and just kind of places that are in the general area. So when I am in that area, I usually meet up with them or something. But because I was on my bike, I just did that. But yeah, got the train. It was nice. And then all the Sox fans kept getting on. And yeah, you just like download the little app and you buy your ticket. And I just haven't been on a train in a hot minute. And I kind of remembered I really like trains.
Thanks for listening to the Bike Shop Society podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with us, email us at mail@bikeshopsociety.com. If you're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you can look us up at Bike Shop Society. That's it. Get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Now, back to the show. Goodbye.
As a child, I used, one of my favorite things of going to the baseball games was watching the fights in the stands because the team was not very, they were not very interesting, but there were fights galore and just brawls and beer being thrown, and there was a very cheap ticket to the game. That the White Sox did a lot of outreach into the public school system of Chicago, and I think to all the schools they used to hand out these half price tickets and school night tickets, and I mean they were like just anything to get people in the door. And
I was going to say they couldn't give them away like fast enough.
No, yeah, I mean it was a real, like I
remember those. They're like, we have 10,000 tickets. You're like, wow.
I remember being like out in front of the place and just being waved in, like, hey, come on in, plenty of seats. Just
Hey, you kid.
Yeah, it'll look better for television. Just you want to go in. And
I could see you on Monday morning, your teacher being like, "What did you do this weekend, Joey?" And you're like, "Well, I saw some brawls."
oh yeah, I mean there were
at Comiskey.
always fights, and there was an old player named Minnie Minoso. Do you remember Minnie?
Oh yeah,
Minoso?
of course.
And he would just hang out. He would just roam around in the stands and just sign autographs and talk and he'd been a player for a long time. I believe he set they allowed him to set some record like deep into his 50s where they allowed him to take an at bat. They allowed him to play in a game so that he would have like played in 5 decades or something like that.
Wow.
Of baseball, 4 or 5 decades. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That was the kind of ownership and team that we rooted for. We had a shower. I think we were like the first team to have like a shower out in the outfield where people could just stand under a shower and pull a cord. The infamous disco demolition night happened at
Of course.
at Comiskey Park. I mean, there were all sorts of crazy things. I mean, they're still doing some of that stuff, like Elvis night. Have you been on an Elvis night?
I haven't, but I've heard of them.
There's like 100 Elvises, and they come out on parade and they bring them out, and then they're parachuting Elvises. I forgot if there was. I don't know if there were more than one, but there was at least one parachuting Elvis into the game, and I don't know if they're still working. Since COVID, I've lost track of all of their ridiculous nights. They've had disco nights there and all sorts of random things. My sister's a season ticket holder, so I hear a lot about those activities. So.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, I grew up going to Sox games. My dad was, off the boat Irishman. He wasn't really one for American sports,
mm-hmm.
and he actually always made fun of baseball because we call it the World Series, and he's like, "How the hell can you call it the World Series?"
Yeah. Well, that's American. That's being American. We're full of ourselves.
Yeah,
nobody plays this. Nobody else around the world. South America,
like
I guess,
and
South America.
Japan and like Canada has a team or two, but in general, it's like
it's not.
Yeah. The point was I always thought that was funny, but it was just his way. But point being, so my best friend Dave, who lived on the block, his father was like a pretty archetypal American dad,
mm-hmm.
and so he worked for Illinois Bell, the old monopoly phone company.
Yeah,
and he always got free tickets.
Yep.
And he would get pretty decent tickets. We weren't like third baseline or first baseline or anything fancy, but they were better than like super nosebleeds. So he would pick me up with Dave in his light baby blue Volkswagen Beetle.
Oh wow!
And it was just wide enough, or I should say narrow enough, that it fit on our sidewalk. And so he would drive down the sidewalk in his VW Bug down 69th Court in Oak Lawn, and I would be on the porch, and my mom would give me $5 and comb my hair and whatever, and I'd see the car come and he'd hit the little horn, and it was so exciting. It was like a big thing, and we're going to Comiskey. And so,
and he was up on the sidewalk. So that was probably exciting in itself that the car was coming down the sidewalk. And and a Beetle, which is, it's like getting in a clown car. So the whole thing was probably just beautiful.
It was so freaking like Norman Rockwell, and it was so ridiculous, but fun. And, I don't know if you have ever sat in a VW Bug, the older ones.
Yeah.
So, but you could smell the leather, and you could smell the gasoline, the motor, and it was so slow and loud, but awesome. It was like this cool little metal go-kart, and so much fun. So then he would drive us down, and obviously, buy us hot dogs, and we'd watch Greg Luzinski, I remember, and I think Carlton Fisk, and a bunch of cats like that. I'm pretty sure Ozzie Guillen. But he would always finish off. We would go for Italian ice after, and I can't remember the place. It was some classic Chicago place. We'd go for Italian ice before the road trip home, and we'd cruise along the Stevenson back home. And so that was our big fun time, and we did that a lot. He would get free tickets all the time.
And those were night games, right? I mean, those were
mostly night games.
Yeah. I mean, the Sox played a lot. During I remember those being evening nights and like school nights when you'd be out there and
Yep.
It always felt like doing something bad.
Oh, it felt so cool because that was one of my, like I said, my folks were off the boat. Irish, they kind of weren't city going folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so bringing it back. So White Sox, Comiskey, train ride,
bike,
got back, rode home. It was good. It was good to have just a little leg stretch. It wasn't a big crazy ride. It was a nice, pretty easy, fun ride, but good to see you at the shop. And yeah, I got to ride past the old, Blues Brothers prison.
Joliet. Jake. Yeah.
Go right past it. So
I think a couple of weeks ago there was a Blues Brothers fest or concert out there where Jim Belushi and Dan Aykroyd were out, singing and dancing at Joliet prison.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And anyway, I want to do more and more of that. If you're ever interested, or if any of our listeners are, I could use some companions.
Yeah, you know what? Send us an email if you ever want to hook up mail@bikeshopsociety.com. There are, weekends, obviously. We're somebody's available to do a ride. I know that we have some local riders that listen to the show. So if you ever want to hook up, let's get that. We should try to get that going because, the season's ending soon. We're in the sweet spot right now. I mean, I think that this next month and a half, we're going to have some nice fall rides available to us. And but then after that, anybody who lives around here knows that it's kind of a crapshoot, as far as weather goes. So.
Yes, it is. It's fun. I like it. So
nice.
That was my Saturday. How have you been, man?
Good. Just busy since the last time you saw me at the shop. We're busy on the weekends, and we're coming into mountain biking season there at the shop, and so which is good. It's good. We get a lot of people coming out from the city and renting bikes, and the trails start. There's a lot of people that just don't ride in the meat of the summer. It's too hot and humid and buggy, and the forest preserves are not very hospitable. For the average person at that time of the season. I mean, people that ride, riders ride no matter what, whether it's cold, hot, wet, those, there's a group of people that will always be riding, but that casual mountain biker, that casual cyclist, this is like a sweet spot, from now and through Thanksgiving or so, the end of November, where a lot of people do come out. They'll even switch sports at this time of the year to start mountain biking. Maybe they're, road cyclists up and down the lakefront until this time of the year, and then they kind of switch modes into mountain biking guy, and we get a lot of bros coming down from the, coming from the city with their buddies to rent, where they're dragging some poor guy out for the first time and onto the trails, and they need to rent a bike, or bringing some friends who want to give it a try for the first time. So it's always kind of interesting. It's a fun time. You get to meet a lot of new people and kind of introduce some people to the trails. And then what else is going on? Well, and then the biggest thing for me, I mean, besides the bike shop stuff, is that my old shop, Cycle Smithies, this is their last week in business after 50 years. And just the closing of that, I've spent a little bit of time there with them, and I guess watching the place getting torn down and taken apart, and just very nostalgic time for myself and for a lot of people that work there. I've been a point of contact for a lot of the old crew, and relaying information and people asking me things, because I've probably been there a little bit more than any of the old time staff, and just sending some photos out. Also organizing kind of a retirement dinner for my old boss, Mark. So just touching base with a lot of the the staff that's scattered around most people are in Chicago, although there's a few people that are in San Diego and cool places. I've found out. I didn't realize it's, where there were some of the Monterey Bay.
Wow,
Yeah. There's some people that
Are they flying in?
I don't think anybody listens to this show really. So there may be one or two people coming in from out
You never know,
out of
Joe.
state. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You never know. But yeah, there may be a couple of people coming in from out of state, but a lot of them are still local. So just, trying to get everybody on the same page and down for this reunion. Yeah, which should be a lot of fun. It's been kind of fun touching base with a lot of people and seeing what people are up to. Others I've known, I've stayed in touch with, but there are some people that I haven't talked to. Boy, in over a decade, I talked to people that I haven't talked to in over 10 years over the last week. So it's been kind of an interesting week,
I'll say, yeah, and a lot to unpack there. But one, I mean, just kudos, man. Thanks for jumping into that. You're the POC, and you're kind of like heading this, and you're organizing the dinner, and so props for all that, because I don't think it would have happened otherwise.
No, you know what? I saw that it wasn't going to happen. I was like, this.
I'm not kidding. It would not be happening.
Yeah,
otherwise, so.
yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, it's very important for me to mark this moment because I know
No pun intended.
Yeah, I know by talking to our friends, some of our old friends and people that we worked there with, that was a really special time and special place for a lot of people, and I know for me it was just like a really not only a fun time, but it was a really important time in my life. The things that the stuff that I learned there, and I mean, shit, I ended up opening a bike shop. And so I don't know. It seems like this occasion should be marked a little bit well and remembered, and it's a nice opportunity to visit with my old friends, reconnect with all these people who are doing interesting things. Talk about Bike Shop Society, right? I mean, this is it. This is like, I think I really do see it as part of something that we started at the beginning of the year when we started the show. It was Bike Shop Society. It was reaching out to these people that are scattered around the world who had spent the best times of their lives in a bike shop or around a bike shop, and who maybe went away for a while, who had to go deal with real life and kids and jobs and all the rest. But, over the last couple of years, it's given us all a little bit of time to think. And for me, those relationships and those friendships and the things that happened during those years were super important. And everyone's been very excited to participate. Everybody will, even the people that are out of state were like trying to drop whatever they're doing to come back. And, it's been, the response has been great. So I'm really looking forward to kind of having everybody under the same roof again, or, we're going to meet at the bike shop for drinks and one more walk around, although it's not going to look anything like the place that we all worked at. But at least it's kind of like, I see it like visiting the old house for one more time, before you sell it or, get rid of it or it gets demolished. It'll be kind of an emotional night, I think, for some people, because of just everything that happened.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
I think it totally will be.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. For some of the people there, I mean, there's part of the crew that was there 20 years before me, and so for a handful of those guys, I mean, I'm familiar with the place for the last 25 years, 26 years, but there's another half of that, that shop's been around for 50 years. So there are some that were there right from the beginning, that I've been able to track down. So that's going to be very interesting. So
including a recent guest, Earl the Love Muscle.
Yeah, Earl Russell, who's 50 years in the shop a couple of episodes ago, and I was just with him today, so I mean he still comes through pretty often, and I see him a lot.
Yeah, and listeners, if you didn't catch that episode and you want to hear what a real real Chicagoan sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're talking like Studs Terkel level authenticity. Go back and listen to that episode, because I was listening to that episode on my road trip back from Canada, and I was with Sarah, and she kept remarking, "Wow, he's so Chicagoan."
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that too. Like he's a real Chicago guy. Like the accent, if you will, just the words he uses, the way he speaks, even the cadence. Real Chicago guy. So if you didn't catch that, I think it's actually a really good episode.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you obviously a great history of his time in the shop, but also like some other stuff going on in his life. So anyway, you're on a good roll there, but I think you're 100% right. It could be quite emotional. And, for a lot of, I worked there a couple of summers, but like you said, there are people who've been working there for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's basically, it's not exactly where I met you, but it's
Mm-hmm.
where I got to know you better.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. And you helped me get a job there. And I was selling some bikes. I remember I was commuting from Oak Lawn down Archer Ave every day.
Yeah.
that was fun.
It's quite a ride.
And yeah, it was good times though. But what a great shop, and I think it's gonna be fun as hell. I'm looking forward to that dinner. And you know what we should do, Joe? Maybe you've thought about this, but I'd be happy to play a little roving reporter with you. But we should try to at least document, record some of the conversations that night. Maybe hit up some people, say,
Yeah.
"Hey, can you just give me a little 5 minutes, like your favorite memories of the shop, whatever." I think if we were able to get like a decent recording of just a little bit of those conversations, I think that could make for a really good episode, and we incorporate it into this thing we call the Bike Shop Society.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot to unpack, and I think it's such a storied shop. I mean, the thing is, there's so much we don't even know, right? Like it's just layers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many stories. So I'm sure Mark is going to have a ton. Others going to have a ton. And I'm just really looking forward to hanging out and observing and just listening to a lot of folks. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be really cool. And, and just this other thing I was thinking about as you were talking about it is, it's a real, in, literature, they talk about a sense of place,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know of another place like Cyclesmithy in Chicago. Like that was a place that we knew. We kind of, I don't want to be corny and say we called it home. Maybe you did in some ways, but
Mm-hmm.
that's like a place you can always go to. It feels kind of safe, and people. But it's not like a bar. It's like you can go there. It's like
I said that
this
to
cool
I said that
place.
to one of the guys that I was that I reached out to, our friend Mike, who I worked there several years with, and old friend of the owners. And I said, we're after dinner we can go back to the shop for drinks. We'll have drinks and beers and hang out, and it's better than a bar. He's like, it's better than going to a bar. And he's like, bar? He's like, Cyclesmithy is way better than a bar, than any bar in Chicago. I mean, he was absolutely right. I mean, it was drinking and conversation and partying. I mean, the bike shop really had, it was a shop where all that and more went on. Sometimes even during work hours, there was a little drinking and partying going on during the day, and it's everyone's got their stories there. Every person that I talked to had, it was every phone call I made. In fact, I had to be careful about calling people because everything turned into an hour-long conversation or 45-minute long conversation. In fact, I started just texting because, I didn't have time to engage in an hour-long conversation with every single person.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I started doing I started doing texts, but I'm really looking forward to being able to catch up with everybody and and also just see where everybody's at. I mean, I don't seem it's never seemed very far from me, and I think it's very maybe I'm feeling it more because I'm still in it. I was never very far removed from the bike shop life or the bike shop world, and so for me, that place has always been kind of the reference.
And this is selfish, but I've always just really loved I could be out and about on my bike or just walking around or doing whatever, but I might find myself in the area and it's like I could just pop in, even if I don't know anyone working there at
Yeah.
that moment. Because, it's like a bike shop, they have a lot of rotation
Yeah.
and stuff. But I still feel like I kind of know it. Like I just go in and I might hover upstairs a little bit and look at some bikes, kick a couple of tires. I might peek downstairs, say, "Hey,
Oh.
who's wrenching back there?" But it's always just kind of like, yeah, this is a place I know, and we know in like a lot of big cities, but Chicago for sure, places come and go, and they close
I
down.
mean,
And obviously, with the pandemic, there was a rash of that too.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's this place is it's not going to be there in a month, and
Yeah.
that's kind
It's
of
not,
crazy.
yeah, I mean, it really is like going to, I don't know. I never went to college, but I imagine, I imagine that that's what those old dudes wearing Notre Dame hats and caps and guys, wearing all their university gear at the golf course. Um, I imagine that that's what they feel like when they go back to the campus, right? And or they, go visit the dorms because, and it's not, it's not so much that it was the school or anything. I think it's also just a time in your life, your
Mhm.
20s that, I mean, those are just really, really formative years. The people you meet, the music you get into, the things you try and adventures and,
And just the laughs and the
yeah,
fun times
yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's ultimately you're selling bikes, and I know you know better than I do, but it can be challenging. It's like you own your own business, and I'm not trying to gloss over like the seriousness and the real challenge of owning a business and having bikes to sell and all that. But at the same time, they're bikes, and so a lot of people associate bikes with childhood and
Yeah, yeah,
nostalgia. And so
yeah.
maybe it's like working at a carnival or something, but there's something about a bike shop, a really good bike shop, where people actually care and know their work, where you kind of go in and like you don't have that in a lot of places. And I can't say I've had that in all bike shops I've been to either. Some feel like they're just churning out bikes and they want to get you going and out of there and
Mm-hmm.
be on your way kind of thing. Whereas like a really good bike shop is like you kind of want to keep going back because it's, as we've talked about that R word, right? The
Mm-hmm.
relationships.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've hung out there probably more in the last 2 or 3 weeks than I have in the last 10 years, just because I'm not one to really go and interfere. There's a different crew there, and not getting in the way of what they're doing there. But last week I spent an entire day there at some
Mm-hmm.
point, just kind of hanging out and talking to customers as they came in and selling bikes and just soaking it in, soaking in
Mm-hmm.
the atmosphere of the neighborhood. Um, Customers coming in, almost crying, just to say goodbye, to take one more last look around, and hearing the stories, and people just coming by to try to share a story. That I bought my first bike here. I bought my daughter's bike here, and my daughter bought her daughter's first bike here, and you forget how intertwined you are in people's lives. Everybody's got some story to tell about their experience at the shop, and so it's also made me examine what my own place in all of this, and the fact that people are coming back to me now, and people that didn't have kids when I opened the bike shop, who now have kids and are bringing their kids in to buy bikes and all of that. And so it just the important, like how important you are to some people, and without even knowing it, just because you are the thing that keeps their for a lot of people, that bike brings them a lot of happiness, and you're the one who's kind of helping them, you know, uh, uh, be able to do that on a regular basis. Have that happy moment.
Yeah,
That's
that's
cool.
it is cool, and that's what again makes bike shops different from a lot of other
Mm-hmm.
shops. My I have this like memory of being at Cycle Smithy. Let's say it was a Saturday, and everyone's working hard. We're slammed. It's a beautiful Saturday in Chicago. um, Lincoln Park, and not far from the lakefront, and everyone's there. and probably we all skipped lunch because we were so darn busy. And just running around, bringing bikes down to
To the
the
mechanics, yeah.
to the mechanics to the first floor.
Yeah.
To hey, can we get a service on this bike? This bike's going out. Learning how to write the tickets and figure out the bill, getting test rides done, fitting bikes. I was fitting people. I wasn't even trained. I was like fitting people. And, then they're like, oh, I want shoes. I need locks, accessories, just all of that stuff. And I remember at some point just kind of looking up and it was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I got here at 10 and I don't think I've had a cup of water or a bite to eat. And then I remember you being like, all right, we're getting pizzas. And you would order like a bunch of pizzas. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And I remember you ordered a pizza with bacon on it. I never had pizza with bacon on it. And I was like, oh my God, I love this job. And then like, it was also for me personally, it was also kind of around, I had started, riding and getting into racing a little bit like before, but it wasn't long before. And so a lot of my time at Cycle Smithy too was about learning more about like road bikes in particular, and also kind of like riding and bike racing and the culture of it. So getting into like, they had the print Vela News, and I remember we had a bunch of cool stuff on the walls and like old jerseys, and just really learning and understanding more and more about the history of it.
Yeah, getting immersed
but those
in that
are
lifestyle.
Yeah. And those are totally like random images, but like those were the kinds of things I think about like working at Cycle Smithy. And so then we'd eat like a bunch of pizza, and I remember just getting on my road bike, and maybe I'd get some like new tires while I was at the shop that day, and just fun stuff like that. And for me, those are great memories. I'd wrap the Vela News up and put it in my back pocket.
Yeah, without paying for it, which was the best.
Mark, if you're listening, I paid with blood, sweat, and tears. You know how many bikes I sold for you, Mark?
It was a perk. Those
are my fleeting random memories. But oh my God, such good ones. I remember going home. My mom, I'd ride back home to Oak Lawn. Was it 15, 20 miles? I don't know. And this is before lights and helmets were in vogue. But I remember my mom being up at the kitchen, like reading the paper, having her tea, and she'd be like, "Oh, you're home. Like, how was work?" I'm like, "I'm exhausted." She's like, "Oh, are they working you too hard?" And I'm like, "No, I love it. I can't wait to go back. I work tomorrow at 10. I'll be out here by 8:30."
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved going to the shop.
It was it was a thrill. I was telling somebody about my drive to the bike shop, because we lived south. So I would drive, down the highway, but we'd get to Lakeshore Drive, which was, the big road that runs along Lake Michigan here in the city. And I could tell, good 6-7 miles away from the bike shop, how busy we were going to be by how many people I saw on the bike path. And if it was those sunny days, I'd look over, and when the bike path was busy, I knew that I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be 15 minutes late. The shop is jammed. I'm in trouble. And you could tell, you could already tell just by the amount of traffic on the path what you could expect at the shop. And I mean, it was a given that if it was a sunny weekend, that you were just going to be busy. That was the kind of shop that it was. Sun's out, fun's out, and it was an amazing place to work. It was a unique place to work because of the owner of the shop also was a huge bicycle collector, and so some of the bikes that were just hanging around the bike shop. Today I saw. If you check out their Instagram, Cycle Smithy Instagram site, you'll see some of the pictures of the bikes that they've been taking off the walls, because he had kind of a pseudo museum setting there where he hung some cool bikes from his collection. Not even some of the coolest stuff, but just stuff that he had good stories about, and some of them were he pulled on a couple of 711 time trial bikes, some of the funny bikes. He had two of them there. He had a couple of the GT Olympic track bikes that were hanging up there, which were, have some real interesting stories. In fact,
I think the 711 TT bike, sorry, with the disc wheels. I think that was on the gram today.
Okay,
I like just saw it today anyway. So.
Yeah, I saw a photo of something floating around.
I mean, that just like you look at it, and you're like, oh my god, this thing exists. This is a real thing that people rode in like the Olympics, and it's like here in this like bike shop in Chicago.
Oh yeah, it's just laying there. I mean, the guys just had it down, and it's just something that hovered above our heads for years. That we didn't even pay attention to at some point.
As you sold like 500 hybrids below it on a Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, people would just kind of walk by it, but watching the place get emptied out and being able to just appreciate some of the stuff that was hanging on the walls. I mean, it's just amazing. A bike that belonged to one of the Schwinns, like his original towny bike that he had made for him that was, abandoned at their lake house in Lake Geneva. It was just something they found in the garage. So just every bike in that shop had a story, and there's no replacing it. There's nothing that's going to take its place. I guess it's our job to kind of keep the history of that place alive, and that's why I see it as my place to kind of document as much as I can and as many stories as I can from that time and from those people. Because, I mean, if we don't, then it's just gonna it just fades away. So
my only piece of advice there would be, and I've had a couple experiences with this, is get those stories down while you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to trick yourself or to tell yourself, "Oh, well, I didn't get them before the shop closed, but I'm gonna follow with them. I got their number, and then I'll do it soon. Next thing you know, a year goes by.
Oh, that's why I'm scrambling.
2 year goes by, and then people start disappearing.
Yep.
And you never get it.
Yep.
And so, it would be amazing to get as much as I know we've already got some. But I think anytime we can record it, get it down, if people are happy to speak to a little mic, if we can do a podcast or two, obviously tons of photographic kind of documentation, like whatever it becomes, even if it's just an ebook or just a big PDF that goes underground on Reddit,
or a little podcast, just a podcast.
Remember this cool shop, Cycle Smithy?
Yeah,
and it's like they had some wackadoo stuff, and they sold bikes to like Robin Williams, and they had like Olympic TT bikes, and I don't know, just it's a great institution, and I feel like we should play like archivists, and we should play like documentarians. We should kind of just step in, and however amateurly we do it, it doesn't matter. Like just put something, like as the photographers say, just get it in the box. Just get it. So wow, it's scary to think about how many stories and how many chapters that guy has in his book. His book is a long, thick book.
Yeah, I think about. So I'm like thinking about the history that I have with him, and how he's a reference to me when it comes to old things and everything bike. But while I was there the last time, he started talking about his group of old guys and the people. I have mentioned to him being about being on the show and recording him and talking to him, and he's like, you don't need to talk to me. You need to talk to this guy. And he names this,
which is a very Mark answer.
Yes,
very very self-deprecating and humble and modest. But we know his stories. But he's also true that we should also talk to those people. But also Mark. Yeah,
because he's like, those guys barely, and then he starts imitating them, and they can barely walk, and they're in their 80s. So like his references, the people that he looks up to, and the people he learned from are in their 80s, and there's very very few of those guys. So I'm hoping that we're able to talk to him, but through him, maybe even contact with some of these people. And like you said, there's some urgency to it, because we do kind of put these things off. And and then we regret it, right? We end up just like, oh man, somebody should have done something about that. Someone should have gone to talk to these people, and I'll save it. I'll save it for the podcast. But there were some really interesting stories that he had regarding some of these older guys and some of the things that they can tell us about, and where who they were in the bike shop with, back 70 years ago. And it's just very very interesting.
Oh, I can imagine. I
Yeah.
mean, I would kill to hear those
Yeah,
stories. Like,
yeah,
um,
and I think we can.
your mind just starts racing like of all these stories. And
Circling back to Bike Shop Society, I think that's kind of part of our purpose, right? And our reason for being. I think we, because if nobody else is doing it, then then it's kind of falling on us, at least for our little sliver of the world, and our little part of the world. I mean, I think that.
I mean, kudos
that is
to
a
you.
good
You
place.
did it with Earl.
Mhm.
You did it with Earl. That's kind of where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can only scratch the surface. That's all anyone can do is scratch the surface. That's what you did with Earl. Is like his like hour or two, whatever. It was fascinating because like he was just going on and on. These stories just kept coming and coming, and like him telling it is like everything. He's like Chicago guy.
Oh yeah. Well,
like he's the guy. It's
yeah.
like a horse's mouth. So
Yeah.
that was like stuff like that. I think is for folks who would be interested. I think is cool. Like I still go back and listen to like Studs Terkel, and like I have actual analog books by Stud Circle, and I've like read them. Like I love that stuff. I digress.
Yeah.
Chicago has a very interesting place in the world of cycling, as we know.
We'll have to dig into that a little bit more once we get through this next month. We'll see what the next month brings here. With there's going to be a lot of bike shop talk, a lot of going away, and a lot of until we put this place to rest and
there's going to be a lot
of this place.
So much going on. That's all super cool. Two other quick things, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
One, if she is listening to this podcast, I would like to say thank you very much to Kate Wagner for coming on to the show in the last episode. If you missed it, please go listen to it. I thought it was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
She's so smart. She's very eloquent. She's a great writer.
She's
active on the socials.
It's a great listen, even if you're not necessarily into bicycle racing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a fun listen. So shout out to her. If you're listening, Kate, thank you so much. We loved having you on. And then the other thing, Joe, was if you wanted to talk briefly about La Vuelta.
Oh, Jesus. That has been ridiculous, especially the last couple of days. The last few days, it's just insane there.
So insane.
Yeah.
So when I saw you Saturday, you told me not to tell you the results, and I was good. I didn't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So as you maybe have seen by now, of course, the Saturday stage. Do you remember what happened in the finale?
Yeah, you took I can't do it as good as Kate does, because she rolls her R's, and I mean she does a proper pronunciation of.
We'll just be Joe We'll be Joe Southside Chicago guys.
Roglic, whatever your name is.
I say Roglic, but that's probably wrong. But he took a little time back, right? And Evenepoel cracked a little bit. I mean, cracked maybe is too strong, but he couldn't keep pace, and he was And anyway, fast forward to today. You know what happened today, Tuesday?
Well, yesterday, right?
Slash yesterday and this morning with the announcement that Roglic was out of the Vuelta because he had a really weird crash yesterday, Monday stage, the first stage after the rest day, in the sprint. It was such a crazy stage because a lot of it wasn't super interesting until the last handful of kilometers. Anyway, Roglic goes on the attack against his GC rival Evenepoel and does this baller move, and like for 45 minutes I'm watching the stage, drinking my coffee, like I was doing like I call it life admin. I was like paying a bill or something, and sleepy stage. All of a sudden I'm like looking at the screen like Roglic. He's attacking. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, he's going after more seconds. God, I love this guy. So
And Evanpool got
gets
a flat during that. Somewhere in there
Evanpool
too.
gets
Yeah.
he got a flat, and then like Roglic is in a small group with Mads Pedersen, who wins the stage. And then the little sprint, and I think Roglic was clearly, well, he was charging to the line going for seconds, didn't care about the stage run per se, although he would have liked those bonus seconds. But this, that, and the other, as listeners will now know by the time they hear this, if they don't already by the time, as we're speaking about it. But he has a bump off another rider and crashes. So he crossed the line eventually, but things were looking pretty bad. He was really bloody and beat up, and it looked pretty nuts. And unfortunately, he had to announce that he was pulling out of the Vuelta with like 4 days to go, 4 or 5 days ago. So that's obviously huge and crazy because he was clawing back pretty nicely. Like he was taking chunks back. He was still over a minute down, but anything could happen in the closing days, and who knows what he might have done in some of these mountaintop finishes coming up.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he was getting stronger and kind of riding himself into. I mean, he was eating up 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there. I mean, it didn't seem like an insurmountable deficit, and
it was tricky. Like to be brutally honest, I think it would have been somewhat impossible for him to win the Vuelta, but anything could happen would be my point. Like the way Evenepoel rode in that TT was like insane. So who knows what could have happened, but with these stages, he was clawing back. You're right. He was looking stronger and stronger, and it's the way he was riding. He was going on the attack, being aggressive. And Evenepoel often, Evenepoel, as amazing as he is, what a talent. I mean, he was usually alone at the end, or had one teammate left or something at the very end. So I don't know, crazy. And then I wake up to see the news, which I was afraid of and kind of thought would happen. And so Roglic out of the Vuelta. So now we have the Vuelta without Roglic, and we have a few stages left, and then the finish into Madrid. But
yeah, I saw somebody.
Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody tweeted a photo of what might have caused the fall. And I didn't really watch the slow-mo
replay. Are you talking
about
the colorful like ice cream?
Thing? Yeah. Did you actually see a touch of wheels, or was there an actual touch of wheels? I didn't get that far.
Daniel Freeb tweeted that splatter. I called it the Pollock rainbow cone. Jackson Pollock. I did not see the touch of wheels. I think that was kind of discounted a little bit, but
okay.
I did see just some of the angles. I think he just like hit like a bumper. Oh, there's that colorful thing. To answer your question though, I didn't see a touch of wheels. It just looked like Roglic was, cross-eyed. He'd done the most massive effort, and then he was mixing it in a little bit with some sprinters. I don't know. I'm not a commissaire. I'm not a jury, but it looked like he maybe just bumped off someone, or who knows. I mean,
it was just a bad fall, and just stylistically too. It was just when he got up and his sunglasses were all twisted and weird, and he got back up on the bike. It was just such a bad. I'm like, I like the guy so much, but like he started riding and his glasses were crooked. I'm like, dude. I'm like, oh no.
It reminded me. I'm sorry. I understand 100% what you're saying right now. I feel 100% the same. He just looked like such a Fred.
Yes,
and he's
bad.
And to be clear, he's one of our favorite riders.
Yes,
Kate, if you're listening, we love Roglic.
Yeah,
we know you're his fan, but we love him. But he sometimes, as amazing he is, he's so lean and fast and strong and amazing. But sometimes he just has this like things. I remember the TT where he lost to Pogačar. His helmet was pushed back. He looked like such a Fred. And it's like he had no sunglasses on, and he just looked like someone in a bad triathlon or something along the lakefront.
He's a walking meme.
But normally he looks so cool.
No.
And It's just in a couple of these moments, like he becomes like it's like those glasses were like
It was so
so
bad. It was
peak.
just, it was bad. That was just so
Uh,
bad. Like, I've seen crashes before of people that I like, but very rarely do they look that bad, right? I mean, it's just the
I
look,
know.
it's just a bad, it's just
It was
unfortunate.
it was kind of cringy,
Hmm.
but poor guy, bad luck racing.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
I guess
Yeah,
I guess the takeaway is that's racing,
it
but
is. It is.
it's really shitty that happened, and
Yeah.
I'm super bummed for him.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it looked like Evan Pohl was being a good champ, and
Yeah.
he was trying to extend his like condolences and say, "Hey, man, I'd rather have you in this race
Oh, he
than
went
out of
right
this
over. He
race."
went right over
He
to him, and
did. He did.
you could see the look on it. The look on his face was like, "Gosh," he
Yeah.
looked genuinely like concerned, and
Yeah.
also kind of bummed, right? Because you're only as good as your rivals, and the
Yep.
race is only as good as the person that you're fighting. And he knew
Hmm.
he seems like a guy who's up. I mean, both of those guys is what I really like because Roglic, he's trying to win. Like
Yep.
he crashed because he was making an aggressive move. He's racing, and I
Yep.
think that both of them. I think that one of the reasons the race is so good is that both of them are racing. They're racing. They're not watching their heart rate monitor. They're not. They're going for it, and it's been fun to watch those two guys.
I like how you reference heart rate monitor as opposed to power meter. That's
Yeah,
fun. I
I'm
feel like that's a nice throwback to the
I'm
to
old.
the what's the was it the polar heart rate strap
Polar,
from
yeah, uh-huh, yeah,
I think I got a polar from Cyclosmithy.
uh-huh.
No, but you make a super important point, maybe the most important point. These guys are racers,
Mm-hmm.
especially I have to say Evan Pohl for sure, but Roglic. I mean, he has been attacking like a baller.
Yeah,
He's been going. He's been throwing like all fucks to the wind. Like,
yeah.
let's do this.
Let's
We're
do it.
doing this.
Yeah.
And he's got that crazy freaking stage where he crashed. He's pulling the whole last several K.
Yeah.
He's got Mads Pedersen, the former world champ,
Mm-hmm.
two-time stage winner now. Who knows how many stages? One of the best riders around. He's got all these other ballers in there. No one's pulling. He's pulling all these
Yeah.
fuckers
Yeah.
for several K.
Yeah.
No one's coming in to help, which is fair. That's racing. But he's like, I don't give a fuck. I want some seconds back.
Yeah.
I want that bonus if I can too. That's why he sprinted. He could have just sat up. That's why he sprinted. So, I mean, his heart's in the right place. I think someone tweeted, I forget who it was, but someone's like, do you know any rider who's like, I don't know if it was like, who's broken your heart more or who's had the worst luck? It was something like that. But I was kind of like stumped. I'm like, I don't know if I have anyone like poor Roglic, I mean, an amazing talent. Obviously he's won the Vuelta 3 times now, and he's won a bunch of cool shit, but that was really hard to see him crash out that way.
Yeah.
And hopefully, well, I don't know. For what it's worth, hopefully the last handful of stages are good. Today's stage was actually pretty good too. Not amazing for GC, but there was some. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and say it. We're not giving anything away. So Rigo Uran, one of my favorite riders on the EF Education or Easy Post team, wins the stage, which was an amazing finish. It was so good because it was one of those stages where it looked like 3 or 4 different guys were going to win it. And you were kind of like, oh, this guy's probably got it. And then he fades and this other guy comes up. You're like, oh, this guy's probably got it. Sure enough, Rigo wins the stage. And God, I love Rigo. He's awesome. So the Vuelta's been good, man.
Rigoberto Urán, the first time in his career, a stage win in the Vuelta a España. Pacher trying to get there. Herrada hasn't given up yet. Last few meters, 100 meters to go for Rigoberto Urán. Seems to have the power to get to the line first around the last corner. You'll see the finishing banner. And Pacher trying to get there, but can't do it. Rigoberto Urán, a tremendous stage win.
Rigo. God, fucking love Rigo. So he's won stages. Now he's won stages in all GT. So Vuelta, Giro, Tour. He was lacking that stage win, and he's near the end of his career for sure.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. I was truly impressed with him winning that because I was like, I don't know if he's gonna be able to hold this, and he just kept fighting. He was on the hoods. He's like,
I think this might have just guaranteed another year on EF.
Well, someone made a comment somewhere. I don't know if it was social or what have you,
Uh-huh.
but someone made a comment that maybe he was making a little statement
Yeah.
because you know who they signed, Carapaz.
Mm-hmm.
So Carapaz is going to EF next year. So from Ineos. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not to say Carapaz is slowing down a ton because he's won a stage or two in this Vuelta, right? So
One, two, yeah.
Carapaz is kicking ass, and
Yeah.
he's the reigning Olympic champ, as we know, and he's awesome. He won the Giro, etc. So I mean, he's baller, but yeah, come on, they're racers, like they're
Yeah.
competitive. Like Rigo's like, hey man, I can still win shit. I'm
and-
not going to be that like weird like road camp to
Yep.
like getting dropped after 3 hours. Like he can still win shit. So
Well, and
that was awesome.
And there's probably some national, just some rivalry there because
Ecuador and
oh
Colombia.
yeah, no, for sure. Don't discount that, Danny. I mean, that's a big.
Oh no,
that's
I'm not. I was trying to keep
Yeah.
it apolitical.
No, that's a big deal down there. I was down in Venezuela.
Quito and yeah.
I saw some of that stuff up close, with the rivalries between the Venezuelans and the Colombians and Ecuadorians, and I mean those are very, very heated rivalries, and
It's
and
personal.
and
personal.
even if they're even if they all get along, they're still just there's always just that ribbing, it's like Illinois people and Wisconsin people. It's just a thing, So
and I think probably to some extent a lot of people look at South America as a monolith, like it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh no,
don't really appreciate and respect. No. Very different. Lots of rivalries.
Yeah.
This and that. So who knows what's going to happen? It's definitely an interesting, spicy ad for the team to bring on Carapaz. But
it's an interesting pivot for EF to like really, that whole South American connection now. Where that team was pretty American. It was like kind of the American team. The Garmin team was. I don't know. I mean, there was a closer association with America, and now, I mean, when you think of EF, the figureheads of that team are Spanish speaking. Not only Spanish speaking, but South American, really. So
well, if I'm glad you brought that up because at some point I want to ask Vaughters if he'll come on the podcast, if he would be so generous to give us his time. And actually, one of the questions I would like to ask him about is that I've talked to him about this before, but you're absolutely right. It used to be a quite North American centric team. Ryder Hastedal winning the Giro, obviously from Canada. You had all the early guns like Christian, Zabriskie, all these folks. But over time, he started to shift, and I know he's big on recruiting. He and I have talked about this, the so-called Moneyball effect, finding riders kind of a little bit unknown who have great potential, and he can get with his limited budget, someone on their team, that sort of thing. But anyway, it's for another pod. But he's really he's got people on the ground in a lot of Central American and South American countries, and he has got a network, and he finds these guys, and the part that's a little heartbreaking is they do come onto the team, and some of them stay, but some of them go. Like Higuita, he left.
Yeah.
And there are a number of examples. Uran is one who has stayed.
Yeah.
And he's committed, and JV is committed to him.
Yeah.
And the wins may not come thick and fast, but they do come. And, I mean, he was second in the 2017 Tour. He gave Froome his closest ever victory.
Yeah.
Froome won by under 1 minute. No one came that close. Uran came that close. Anyway, so that's for another pod, but I would love to have JV on and to talk about almost like that could fill an hour with no problem. Like I want to know what brought him to South America specifically, and even Colombia and some other countries down there.
It's a relationship that goes both ways with Rigo and EF, in that they seem to give him a lot of leeway to do his little side projects as stores and his, he really has
he's a brand.
He's a brand, and he markets himself.
Go Rigo, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't see that going over well with a lot of European teams where they really want you to just be a bike racer in your whole life, bike racing, and so having all of these little side things that you're traveling back to Colombia for store openings and that kind of thing. And
he's on those like Telemundo type shows.
Yeah.
He's on those like sketch shows where he's like performing.
Oh yeah.
No, you're 100% right. My thinking is it's because they're smart.
Yeah.
Because they know, first of all, they have a limited budget.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on the tour with them for those 5 years, when I left, the number I remember was somewhere between 15 and 20 million a year,
mm-hmm.
which is half or third of what like Ineos had. And who knows what Jumbo Visma has now in United Arab Emirates and all these guys. Who
mm-hmm.
knows what they got now? Maybe it's 60, 75 million euros. But they had a third, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they're really smart because they're like, hey, we'll take these guys. Look at someone like Uran. Look at he could be second in the Tour de France. It's like, look at this guy. He can win stages. He can also be a mentor for all these other guys.
Yep.
But we're not going to constrain them. It's not some old like French school, like you
mm-hmm.
must do this and not that. And like, I think they're just like very smart. They what EF does better than anyone. They understand social media
mm-hmm.
and they understand like media and just optics. Like look what they're doing with Lachlan Morton right now. I don't know if you saw that. He's riding the Colorado Trail as we speak,
yep.
like nonstop. Like they do. Anyway, the list goes on and on. They do so much cool stuff, and I think it's because they're really smart.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Matt Bowden. I think he's part of that, but others as well. But they're just very smart in terms of how they're going about cycling. They have their own vision.
Mm-hmm.
They do. Let's just be very frank, and I think JV would agree with this. They don't win a lot. They do not win a lot.
No.
People sometimes make fun of them. Johan Brunel has trolled them repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how many wins does JV's team have? Like, it's just ridiculous. But the point is, when they win, it feels like a high quality win.
Yeah,
it feels like a great thing. I don't know. It's something about it when they do win. It feels more meaningful, but I'm probably biased.
They tackle it a little bit differently than the traditional European team,
mm-hmm.
Obviously.
Yeah, and I think part of it is they're just going through transitions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be a fascinating chat to have him on if you're so interested, Joe. And our listeners, let us know. You know how to get in touch, and let us know if you want to hear some people. I think we have a line to some of these folks, and we could at least ask them to come on the show.
Yeah.
Whether they will or not, we'll never know until we ask.
Yeah, we'll at least try to record the call where they say no.
Who is this?